All right.
Should we get spooky?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Sally, I like
All right.
I like your whole look right now. I like the hair, I
Thanks.
like the sweatshirt. Just
Little pumpkins in the background.
That's
leaves.
right.
T-shirt.
Oh, it's a t-shirt. Oh, okay. What is on that t-shirt?
Hocus Pocus, the witches.
Oh,
Oh, the
okay.
witch hairs. Oh,
Okay.
another movie I haven't seen, but everyone references all the
There you
time.
go.
And I feel bad because I'm like, oh, yeah, like them. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm not going to say I haven't seen it.
Kendra,
About that
our
one.
most recent guest host, Kendra, loves Hocus Pocus. Loves it.
Oh,
That's
yeah?
like a must for her Halloween. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it should be
I
a
haven't
must
seen it.
for everyone.
For me,
My
it's
kids have seen it, but I
it's
haven't.
Lego Terrifying Tales. That's all. That's
Yeah,
my
Well, obviously now, yeah.
yeah. Sure.
My scariest movies on a scale of 1 to 3
true.
are Lego and Scream.
This is the scariest movie Steve has ever seen. That's I wish that was true.
Welcome to This Endorian Life, a Star Wars podcast from the Radio Meanwhile Network. My name is Steve Rudd.
I'm Nick Gunning, and we're following the Ewoks from Return of the Jedi to the Ewok TV movies, the 80s cartoon, and beyond.
Today, we are joined by our first returning guest, the Queen of Halloween, Sally Jacoby Murphy.
I did not know I was the first returning guest, and I am so excited about it.
You mark our point of validation that we have a returning
That's
guest.
true.
Oh
Yeah.
my
We are an actual podcast now because we
Yep.
have a returning
We've
guest.
had a second.
We tricked you into
Yep.
returning.
Yep.
Well, I am honored.
Well, good. I mean, I personally can't do a Halloween podcast without Sally. I don't know that I ever have, but Sally has appeared regularly on the All the Book Show podcast as well as How's Things for the David A. Howe Public Library. So she's a regular in the Halloween podcasting world.
I feel very honored.
Good.
And this is this. I feel like the first spooky thing we tried just was kind of a swing and a miss. So I think
That's right. Yes.
I think this time we're gonna do a little bit better.
That's right. We had Sally on the Haunted Village. With a name like the Haunted Village, of course it's going to be creepy, but not this time around.
Yeah, you'd think
Nope.
at least one haunted thing would have happened.
One
but
thing.
Yeah.
What I thought it was going
One
to be a whole
thing.
Haunted Village, but no, nothing. So
Yeah, they
that's where they get you.
it's false advertising.
It
right
is.
There. All right, today we are discussing Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tales. This special debuted on Disney Plus on October 1st, 2021.
What a weird
It
choice.
was a mere little book. Oh wait, no, this just
No,
came
this
out
was
the other
recent.
day,
This
right?
was recent.
Oh,
You're-
okay,
you're
yes,
a
was. I
fully
was.
full-grown
It was a mere
adult.
4 days ago.
You're a full-grown adult.
Oh, I was full-grown adult. Yeah.
Speaking
well,
of you being a full-grown
I don't know.
adult and mentioning the date, we're days away from Steve's birthday. So happy birthday, Steve.
we are.
Happy
Yeah,
birthday.
Nice.
I actually got reminded by looking at my own calendar for work
Wow.
on my phone. I was like, "Oh, it's my birthday."
Hey, look at that.
Well,
What a
Oh,
sad
yeah.
state of affairs. All right, let me tell
I
you a
know.
little bit about Terrifying Tales, everybody. So this special follows the 2020 Lego Star Wars Holiday Special, not to be confused with the horrific 70s Star Wars Holiday Special that's live action. The events are set after the rise of Skywalker. So that's kind of interesting. I do kind of want to get into that because I feel like you get a little bit of info in here that I don't think you got from the prequels. And I was like, oh, or not prequels, sequels. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Anyway, I do want to point out that both the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special and The Rise of Skywalker feature Ewoks, while as Terrifying Tales does not. So this will be the first and maybe only Star Wars thing we do that doesn't have any Ewoks. But I'm going to tie it in.
Big mistake, right?
I'm going to
Big
tie it in.
mistake.
You
Yeah.
wait. You just wait.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm
this
waiting.
special was written by David Shane and it was directed by Ken Cunningham. One of the things I like about these Lego Star Wars things is that they just have a recurring cast, and so like not everybody comes back and does their own voices, and so more often than not when you hear Poe Dameron in one of these, it is Jake Green who reprises the role here. So we've got Jake Green as Poe, Rafael Alejandro as an original character new to this special who plays Dean. Not a very Star Warsy name, Dean. I guess.
but I
Couldn't
dig
think of
it.
anything better.
You like it?
I dig it, yeah. And when he's like, Dean,
Yeah,
it just worked.
you liked it. Well, I mean, I guess it's kind of like Luke, right? I mean, that's not
Yeah.
anything.
That's true. It's a pretty boring name, Luke. you know.
Tony Hale.
Sorry, Luke's.
Tony Hale of Veep and Arrested Development fame as Vinay, who was Vader's, I don't know, acolyte. He was in Rogue One. The character was in Rogue One and has been in comics and things since then. We have Christian Slater. I love Christian Slater. Sally, you a Christian Slater fan?
I feel pretty neutral about him.
Neutral. Okay.
Yeah, I
I
have
would.
no attachment.
I wish I'd known that before we started. But Christian Slater plays Ren. Christian Slater plays Ren in this. We have Matthew Sloan as both Ben Solo and General Grievous. And here's a fun fact: Matthew Sloan voiced General Grievous in the prequel movies. So this is like the original Grievous voice actor.
Makes sense because it was so spot on, wasn't it?
It was.
I
really
agree.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have Dana Snyder as Graballa the Hutt. Matt Sloan
Which
as
I recognized immediately. If you have ever seen Aqua Teen Hunger Force,
Oh.
I had to look it up. I was like, that's the voice of Master Shake. It absolutely is, and it is. I had
Okay.
to look it up, and I was like, wait a
Look
minute,
at
what?
you. Look
Yeah,
at you.
oh, that's a great. I love that show.
We got Matt
Anyway, sorry.
Sloan. No, it's all right. Matt Sloan is Darth Vader. AJ Lucasio as Han Solo. Eric Bauza as Luke Skywalker. Trevor DeVale as Palpatine and Tarkin. This Palpatine is really kind of a rip-off of Seth MacFarlane's Palpatine from the Robot Chicken specials, which I think is kind of lame.
Yeah,
I'll
it
toss that
totally
out
is.
there.
Yeah.
For our featured cast member today, and here's where the tie-in comes, so buckle up, everybody. Shelby Young is reprising her role as Princess Leia from the series Star Wars Forces of Destiny. She's done lots of Star Wars voice work, including projects like Star Wars Tales from Galaxy's Edge, Bad Batch, and Star Wars Visions. But here's the thing. Here's the interesting little tidbit. Aside from voicing Leia in Forces of Destiny, she also provides the voice of, guess who, Steve? Princess Nisa. She's Nisa.
Oh my, she's Nisa
In
oh
several
my goodness.
episodes, and this is the first like canonical appearance of Nisa. Is this Star Wars Forces of Destiny show, because the Ewok cartoon is not considered canon. If you want to get technical, it's like Star Wars
Right.
Legends, but Forces of Destiny are like rubber stamped, like this is real. So the first time
Okay.
Nisa is like a legit Star Wars character, from now until they change their mind about that, is Forces of Destiny, voiced by Shelby Young, who plays Leia
Perfect.
in this episode.
There we go. We don't have Ewoks in their Ewok form, but we have them in their
That's true.
vocal form. So
That's
there
true.
you go.
Yeah.
She's an Ewok.
That's right. That
Come on.
is right. Okay, shall we get into this, Steve? You want to take us through?
Yes. I will take us through the uber detailed plot of Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tales. In Terrifying Tales, we follow the adventures of Poe Dameron and BB-8 after they crash land on the lava planet Mustafar, home of Lord Vader's old castle. After searching for a way to repair his X-Wing, Poe finds Vader's castle has been renovated into a resort by a crafty Hutt named Graballa. Poe also meets a young boy named Dean, who happens to be an expert mechanic and pilot dreamer working for the Twisted Hutt. They learn that the boy works hard for the Crooked Hutt in order to support his family back home. Dean offers to help Poe fix his X-Wing, so they both strike a deal with the Hutt to repair Poe's ship if he endorses the resort, being a celebrity and all.
Of course.
Vinay, Vader's old attendant and caretaker, still lives at the castle and begins spouting spooky prophecies and tales in order to keep Poe in the castle to fulfill an old Mustafar prophecy of a visitor that will help unlock its ancient secrets. Believing this so-called visitor to be Poe, he convinces the pilot to stay after tempting him with the Helmet of Ren, the helmet belonging to the person who created Kylo Ren. Vinay begins to spin a terrifying tale about the helmet. His story is called The Lost Boy, an homage to the 1987 film The Lost Boys, and is about how Ben Solo became Kylo Ren, leader of the Knights of Ren, by seizing power by force. The story intrigues the group, and they become curious about more Sith artifacts potentially hidden in the castle. Poe, not wanting any of the Sith artifacts to fall into slimy Hutt hands, he asks Dean to help him open an ancient door. Their curiosity leads them through a hidden maze deep inside the castle where they discover an ancient Sith lightsaber called the Saber of Skardant. Luckily, the saber is damaged because when working, it is extremely dangerous, as anyone who wields it will be driven mad. This prompts Vinay to spin a second terrifying tale called The Dueling Monstrosities, a play on Frankenstein. Or Frankenstein, depending on which one you've seen. This tale is about a revived Darth Maul and a restored General Grievous and their simultaneous quest to find an ancient Sith lightsaber. Both evil lords battle to return the saber to their master, but the saber is broken in the process after it corrupts them both. Dean is able to fix the lightsaber and ignites the blade. The cursed blade reveals a hidden door which only can be opened with the saber blade. The door leads the group into the first temple of Mustafar, an ancient temple built generations ago that contains a repository of ancient Sith lore. Dean is drawn to a hidden Sith holocron by the spooky spirit voice of Darth Vader. Vinay tells Dean the holocron has the power to make any dream come true, much like a lucky Wookiee paw, Dean says. Vinay spins another tale conveniently called The Wookiee's Paw, which is a reference to the W. Jacobs story The Monkey's Paw, told in the original style of The Twilight Zone. This tale is about Luke Skywalker after he is given a magic wish granting Wookiee Paw from Watto. The Wookiee Paw grants his every wish, bringing him down a dark path of selfishness, causing Luke to become the bad guy in the original Star Wars story. Vinay tricks Dean, telling him that this same holocron will grant any wish if he opens it. Dean really wants his family back home to be safe, so he opens the holocron. But Vinay deceived everyone. All three tales, he told, were to tempt the group to gather the Helmet of Ren, the Saber of Skardant, and the Sith holocron so that Vinay could combine them to seize the power he so greatly desires. His new powers transform him into a powerful Sith construct. Vinay declares that now the galaxy will fear him as it feared his former master, Lord Vader. But Poe mocks him because he has no army to back him up. Vinay's servant droid, Annihilate, transmits a signal that subjugates all of Grabala's worker droids and turns them into an army of zombie droids. Quickly, Poe and Dean manage to steal back the holocron from Vinay and run. Without it, Vinay's power will diminish. Grabala hides like a coward and is frightened in a most recognizable way by zombie droids. We'll talk about that later. Meanwhile, Poe and Dean manage to escape Vader's castle with the intent to leave the planet in Poe's ship. However, both of them rally their courage and return to the creepy castle to fight Vinay. Poe faces his fears, and Dean's dream of being a pilot is fulfilled. Before the two can finally defeat Vinay, Poe is captured. Vinay threatens to drop Poe over a lava cliff if he doesn't hand over the holocron. Dean turns the tide of the standoff when he realizes how much power the holocron has. He tosses the holocron over the edge of the lava pit. Vinay's greed causes him to drop Poe and leap after the holocron, sending him hurling into the molten lava pit below. With Vinay defeated, Grabala and his crew are left with the despicable task of cleaning up the mess. Now, out of a job, Dean agrees to work with Poe and BB-8, and the both of them leave Mustafar to join Rey and the rest of their Resistance friends. Roll credits.
There we have it.
Yes.
So I guess this is the farthest ahead we've seen in the Star Wars timeline at this point.
Yes, this has to be, right?
So that's kind of interesting. All right, Sally, Queen of Halloween. So right away, what do you think about the spookiness of this? Was it spooky enough?
You know, I was thinking while I was watching it that, like, as an adult watching it, it's just silliness.
Right.
Although they have a lot of fun references and stuff. But I feel like as a kid, I would genuinely think it's pretty spooky.
Yes.
It has all the right elements. Like, I think I'd be pretty scared if I was a kid watching it. So, yeah.
Well, just for the sake of research, I watched this with my 7-year-old son, and it freaked him out. So there was there was many a times where he was like, I looked over and like eyes covered, not looking, and like jump scares. It worked. This was a true Halloween special for him.
There were a couple scream and shadow things that I thought would genuinely be scary for a young kid.
Yeah.
You know, like startling, like you know.
Yeah.
So
well, and there's the scene. I think is it in the monkey paw where I think it's Luke in bed and it the ceiling starts to bend down towards him,
Oh,
which is a reference
yeah.
to Nightmare book or Nightmare on Elm Street. But I was like, that's genuinely
It
scary. Like
was.
that as a kid, I would be like, what?
That
Yeah.
was
Cool.
that was Ben Solo in the Lost Boys segment.
That's it. Okay.
But
Oh, okay,
yeah,
that's what. Yeah, it was a Lost Boy
that
segment. Yeah.
well, okay, so I guess we should probably kind of take a look at each segment, but let's talk a little bit about the frame story first. Poe crash landing on this planet, and
Yeah.
Mustafar being this whole planet where Vader's castle was. I feel like this location and the castle and everything have had a lot of play in the expanded universe or even in the new Marvel comics, but like you don't see it on screen very much. So I kind of liked that as a
Yeah.
setting. What did you guys think?
I
I mean,
think
I
it's
loved
perfect.
it.
Yeah. That's the
It was
place to
great.
I mean, Naboo is not exactly a
Yeah.
spooky place. So
Right.
it's like, where are you going to have it? It's got to be on a evil planet. And really, that's Mustafar.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only evil planet or planet used for evil that exists still, kind of.
I
you
thought
know?
getting Poe there was kind of a cool thing. I sort of thought watching it, I kind of wish they would have used, like, if we're using like new, JJ era characters, I maybe would have preferred this to be a Finn story, just because I feel like Poe gets so much play and has been in a lot of these specials, and I feel like having Finn crash land on this might have been an interesting thing to
Yeah, I
do,
agree.
just to
That
be a
would have
little
been fun.
different. But yeah, I mean, I liked the new characters, and yes, it was goofy and it was silly, but I felt like it was a pretty decent blend of just like Sally's saying, like there were laughs, but there were also things that you can really kind of point out as like spooky.
Yeah. Spooky.
Well, and I thought the shtick about Hut turning it into a hotel was just like hilarious. I mean,
Yeah.
both from like it's like a trope in horror movies to have things set at hotels,
Mhm.
but then also just it's just a little bit of like Star Wars absurdity that just works perfectly
True.
for
Yeah.
this kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I
But
mean,
how many
it's-
horror movies have been in a hotel
Right,
too? So that
exactly,
was
yeah.
like a perfect, like, oh, it's a hotel. Should have been like, uh-oh, it's a hotel.
and Huts are so opportunistic, and
Yeah.
the idea
Yeah.
of turning it into a Sith themed hotel. Yeah, I agree, Sally. I just think that's a fun that's a fun little thing to do. That I'm not super familiar with that character, Vinay. Like I didn't really know who that was, other than like having vague memories of a character like that appearing. But let's talk about the Lost Boy. That's the first segment,
Yes.
and this is where
First story.
This is where we see Ben Solo kind of turning. So, general thoughts?
I'm not a horror person, so I don't know if when I was watching it, I thought this seems like a either like a copy of something else about like a kid who's good that turns bad by like joining a biker gang. That's what it felt like. But I thought I was watching it more and like I'm just watching it literally, not realizing the movie references because I literally got like maybe
Right.
2 or 3 references in the whole movie. But that seemed like a really weak Kylo Ren origin snippet for me. I thought it was a little, I don't know, I thought it was a little weak. I wanted there to be a little bit more play with
Well,
Luke,
So, like, I wasn't expecting them to delve into Kylo Ren's backstory, so
Yeah.
I agree that it wasn't super deep, but I actually felt like this segment was my favorite of the whole thing. I thought it worked really well, and I mean, it's more backstory on Kylo Ren than we ever got in any of the movies, so that was kind of... It was just interesting. Like, I agree that it wasn't, you don't see, like, the pathos and all that of what's happening, but it was just kind of a...
Yeah.
It's an interesting little like cul-de-sac of Star Wars that you don't really get to explore. Sally, I was curious because I recognize the Lost Boys like logo font. How much of what happens there is there much of an homage to that movie, or is it just?
I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen The Lost Boys, but I think the gang shtick and the brother, well, they're not brothers in this, obviously, but like the tension between Kylo Ren's character and the lead biker guy is definitely like an homage to the original story where they're brothers in that. But
Okay.
I didn't immediately pick up that it was Lost Boys. Like I didn't pick up on the title card, but when they come in and they're like, "We're wreaking havoc," I was like, "Oh, okay, I know what this is."
Were there other references that you caught in that?
Not in that one, I don't think.
Well, that's the Nightmare on Elm Street thing.
Oh, well, yeah, that's right, because I was associating that with later. But no, I mean, I think that's it. That was honestly probably my least favorite of the 3 of them.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's interesting that it's your favorite, but I feel like, that's it's kind of cool when it happens. But
Yeah.
but I will say I thought Kylo Ren was just hilarious because I can't remember who you said. Oh, this was what's his name that's voicing him. But it sounded like he was doing a Kylo Ren impression, and I loved that.
When he started talking, I thought the same thing. I was like, he's trying to be like Adam Driver, like, oh yeah, oh yeah, and
He
just
kept
like,
his shirt on the whole time, though.
He's
so
trying
it
so
couldn't have.
hard to sound like Adam
So it couldn't have
Driver.
been. I thought that this had. I liked this like for two reasons. Number one, because I liked filling in that story a little bit, even though it was like a goofy rendition of it, like seeing the Knights of Ren and seeing like the character of Ren like appear, and I also felt like some of the things that happened in this were the creepiest things that happened in the whole thing. Like the ceiling thing, obviously, when
Yeah.
it's Ren and Ben like face to face, and the other like knights are around them, and their eyes are like glowing white, and they're like, ah. I just thought that was
That's
really.
also Nightmare. That's also Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, it
So that
is?
whole
Okay.
dream sequence is Nightmare on Elm Street. But that is true. That is freaky. Yeah.
I thought that was genuinely spooky, and I mean, it scared the heck out of my son. So, you know, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Got
that's
him.
fair. I will say I did appreciate them making the Knights of Ren and the like biker gang. Like I thought that was
Yeah,
a
that
clever
worked.
way to
Yeah.
present.
yeah.
Bunch of jerks in black leather with their helmets. That actually, the one thing that surprised me about that was the lightsaber battle at the end. That I was just like, wait a minute, that leader of the Clan Ren or whatever they called was like a legit Sith guy, but wasn't a Sith guy at the
Right.
same time. So that got me thinking like, whoa, who is this guy? Like,
Yeah.
is he like I can imagine him being like a rogue Sith guy, kind of like there would be rogue Jedi
Yeah.
guys.
Well, he
right?
kind of there's this dialogue about that. Ben Solo is like, "Well, you're not a Jedi, but are you a Sith?" And he's like, "No, we're not Siths, but we kind of just like do our own thing." Which again,
Yeah.
more
Which is like-
exposition,
which
more
Rey-
exposition about them,
Yeah.
than we ever
Rey's
got.
not a
so.
Jedi, and so
Right.
she's there's that. I thought that was cool. That wasn't
Yeah.
my Oak of Arc moment. I'm not gonna ruin it. Though.
Okay.
But
All right.
but I thought that was pretty cool. That I was like when he ignited the lightsaber, I was like, whoa, what?
Yeah.
Like, okay.
So then,
So-
out of that, we get a little bit more story, and the purpose of that one, which thing are we getting? The helmet of Ren, right? That's
helmet.
Just,
That
we're
was the
getting
helmet.
of Ren. Okay.
Yeah.
So then we're rolling through, and the next thing we're getting is the saber. Is that right?
Yes, story is directly related to the flow of the story too. Like they discover it, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm going to tell you a story."
Yeah.
As opposed to the first one, which I thought that was interesting. How like the first one seemed forced because he procured whatever it was, and then it's like he had the helmet, right? So
Right.
then, yeah, this one. Then they find the saber, so he tells a story about it. Yeah.
And this is where we roll into the dueling monstrosities. I don't know if I don't particularly care about the prequels, and I think General Grievous is maybe the stupidest character in all of Star Wars. So I didn't particularly care about this one. So I don't know. What did you guys think of Dueling Monstrosities? What do you think, Sally?
I really like the beginning. I mean, I like the witches and
I like the witches too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I thought it was like a funny shtick when like Darth Maul is getting all his little like different legs.
Yeah.
Particularly because it's Lego and like that's like a
Right.
Lego thing to
Right,
like
yeah.
this
Yeah.
But then I didn't care as much, after they've both like risen from the dead or whatever. I was just kind of like, all right, I get it,
Yeah. Yeah, I would have liked
I
more
agree.
with the Night Sisters, like the witches, because
Yeah,
again, those are things that are pretty heavily featured in the books and the expanded universe and stuff. So it was kind of
Yeah.
cool to see them and use them in that way. But after that, I was just kind of like, whatever. I have these two characters I don't care about duel each other. That's fine.
Yeah, and then I did not get that it was I guess a what's the word, like a allegory or a metaphor for another, when it's copying something, when it's like spoofing something. I don't know
Yeah.
what that word is, but that it was Frankenstein. Until until we put it in there, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess it is kind of like they are both being risen. Like I even wrote it.
Yeah.
That one was revived and the other one was restored.
Yeah.
Not thinking like, oh, it was like their body parts being put together and then like it's alive, and then that way over my head. That shows how much I know about horror movies and that lore. I just skated right
Well,
past it.
this one seems the least obvious, though. Like,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
agree.
know. Like, so the title cards kind of
Hmm.
betray what they are a little bit, but this one seems more like ambiguous, like old Hollywood or
Right.
something. Well, and
Yeah.
there is like a line in the middle of it. One of the robots, or sorry, droids, says it's like a reference to The Fly that I didn't pick up on at first, but he keeps saying like basically like it's alive, but it's the Fly version.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, maybe it's that, but also it doesn't
Oh,
100% seem that. So all that to say, I think this is the weakest maybe reference of the three of
right.
Yeah.
them.
Well, so I
Okay.
watched this with my son and I took little notes here and there. And then when I was like, looking up stuff for the episode here, I just had it on again, sort of in the background. And both times it played through, I wrote nothing about this segment because it just doesn't do anything for me. Like I
Yeah.
can't think of any creepy moments. Like this one seems to go more for like funny. Like it
Yeah.
tries with the emperor and stuff, and I just don't think tonally it really works. And so I don't think it's funny, and I don't think there's any real like memorable imagery. So I feel like this was kind of a
Yeah, it just
thumbs down.
sets up the saber being broken.
Right.
That's
I
it.
guess. I
Like the
guess.
whole thing is
Yeah.
really just that.
Maybe a
So,
missed opportunity because I feel like they really could have done something with the three witches. Like
Oh, for
they
mhm.
could have
sure.
done like a Macbeth thing, or like originally I thought maybe it was a spoof on like Perseus and the three like
Mm,
mythical witches in that. And it seems like kind of a missed opportunity to not
I
like
agree.
utilize one of those like horror stories. But
Yeah.
whatever.
And you're not getting anything like like we were saying with the previous one. You at least get a little bit of like backstory on a character. Like here, you don't even get that really.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't
Right.
Well,
know.
you do get the kind of imagery of Darth Maul being, getting his legs,
Yeah, I
which
suppose. I suppose.
I mean,
It's solid.
I can't remember if they had that in the Clone Wars. I think they did, or no, or he just comes in and you're like, wait a minute, that's Darth Maul. Like there is that like connection in that show
Yeah.
somewhere, but I don't think
Yeah.
it's like, oh,
Hmm.
this
You're
is how
right.
he gets his leg. However silly it is,
No,
like,
you're right.
Sally, you said that was pretty silly, and it was like I could have had him go with the BB-8 legs. That would have been fun.
Yeah.
It didn't quite work out, but that would have been funny.
So this then we transition again, and I don't think
Hmm.
this is a great transition into the Wookiee Paw, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do and I do enjoy that when we get in there.
Hmm. This was my favorite one.
Okay.
This one
Okay.
I like the most because all of a sudden roles are reversed,
Yeah.
right? The good guys are the bad guys, and bad guys are the good guys, and then
Mm-hmm.
like people are alive that aren't supposed to be alive, and things like that. So for me, this one was my favorite because it hit all my kind of like, oh, I love it when that happens. It
Yeah.
really, you can really grind a story up and make a
Mm-hmm.
compelling story. You could just destroy it. Like Superman Red Son's a perfect. That's why I thought of that too, because like what a great way to destroy that like the god of Superman by
Yeah.
making him the Red Sun rather than Superman. So
Superman Red Sun
this
is
one
where
was great.
Superman crash lands in Russia instead of America,
Yes,
and
sorry,
then
I should have said that.
things go crazy after that. But yeah, and it also, Steve, like you were saying off mic, it also is a similar premise to like Marvel's What If, where it's like here's one
Yes,
thing
that's
and
what.
we're
Okay,
gonna
yeah.
tweak it a little bit. But
Hmm.
yeah, so this is where Luke gets a Wookiee's paw and then is able to kind of make these wishes and get exactly what he wants and then become essentially the villain. What I think works so well about it though is that it all makes sense. Like all the things he
Hmm.
wishes for, all the things that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like those are all consistent with the characters that we know, also with the goofiness of the Lego thing. I think it was just sort of
Yeah.
firing on all cylinders.
I love this one. I also love the moment where like Leia and Ben are flying the
Yeah,
fighter jets, and they they have that line where she's like, "Thank you for saving me, by the way," and he's
yeah,
like, "Thanks for getting me out of that trash compactor."
yeah,
And I
Yeah.
was like, "This is such a like Star Wars universe moment where like
yeah.
we all could have just assumed those things
Right,
happened, but there's some
Yeah.
nerd somewhere who's like, wait a second,
right.
without Luke,
Yeah,
what?"
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I thought that was very cool. I will say that there was nothing creepy about this one. There's nothing
No.
spooky about
Right.
this one.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that maybe like Wookiees are sentient humans, beings type animals,
That's
and
true.
they're carrying around a severed
That's
hand.
true. That is dark. You're right about that. You're right.
Out
Yeah.
of all the, like, I think it sounds good, like Wookiee's paw, but I was like, this is kind of morbid.
Mhm.
Like, Han Solo's best friend is a Wookiee.
Right.
You think he'd be like insulted, but it's like Han Solo shooting Greedo and then like walking away and then coming back and chopping his hand off and being like, "This is gonna be good luck later," you know? Like, what the heck?
Speaking of Tatooine, I really liked that Luke met Watu. I liked that little
Yes.
that little blending of prequel and original era,
Mm-hmm.
because it makes sense. It's all Tatooine, So I thought that was cool. I really enjoyed watching this one. I thought it was maybe the least Halloween-y of all three.
Yeah, that's definitely
So
Might be true.
So once we get in here, then we're kind of in the final thing where we're learning that Vinay's collecting these for the power and all that. And we have that one gimmick where Poe puts on like the skeleton trooper suit, and BB-8 splashes through orange and green paint and looks like a pumpkin.
Yeah. A spooky pumpkin too.
Yeah, spooky pumpkin. I liked that, and honestly, I could have used more of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
More clear Halloween imagery. I don't think would have been that hard to get in here, and they just didn't really go for it. And even when BB-8 is the pumpkin, it lasts for like 5 seconds, before he shakes it off. I wanted more of that.
I agree.
Yeah.
My son was also terrified by the climax. Vinay falling into the lava, and then the biggest jump for the whole thing was the end where the droid reaches over and is like, "I failed you," and Vinay's hand like pops out of the lava and grabs it. He was like, "Ah!" Like it really got him. It really got him.
I felt that was something that mirrored, another like horror thing.
Oh,
so
sure.
Like,
I mean, that's
if
kind
I
of
start
a classic.
trying to
I think it's Carrie. Well, that's how Carrie ends, but I'm sure it's happened in other. I mean, it's probably in more than one, but that's how Carrie ends. Is like you see the burned wreckage of her house, and then her hand comes up and like goes. So
okay,
that's the one where she's like in school, and I'm trying to remember this.
Pig's blood on her head, and then she uses her telekinetic powers to burn the whole school down.
Oh, geez, I haven't seen that. I do know there's a Megan Fox remake, right, of that or something like that. Wasn't there a remake? Was it Carrie?
Not this. So she did do a teenage like murder thing. I can't remember what it's called.
Okay.
Jennifer's Body. Jennifer's Body.
Oh,
there is a Carrie remake that came out.
There is a Carrie remake. Okay.
Yeah, it was like 2008 maybe. But yeah, it's pretty good actually, that remake.
Oh, okay.
Jennifer's Body is actually also pretty good. But
I'll have to not watch that one as well.
The Sissy Space Act you can't beat. So.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah. All
But
right,
the most obvious like reference was like the Shining moment.
Oh, that's right.
Loud.
Yeah,
that's the one I got. That's the one I got, and it was so good. When
so
he's
like,
it's
Graballa the Hutt.
1845.
Yeah. I know. I was like, this is genuinely good. I mean, like, this is the most obvious reference. It's a little cheesy, but like so good. Good.
Yeah, it's Graballa the Hutt pressed up against the wall, and one of the battle droids that have been turned basically into zombies is hacking through, and yeah, it is a good moment.
And he's totally being Shelley Duvall too. He's being like,
right. Stop swinging the bat, Wendy.
That's the one where I said, and we'll talk about that later, because that to me, I was like, I've seen that movie, so I know what's going on.
I thought the battle droids themselves becoming, essentially zombies when he reprograms them, they've got the red eyes. I thought that worked really well because I hate those things. I hated them in the prequels. I hate them in Clone Wars, but they're like, Roger, we have personality for some reason. I hate it. And so to like take those like goofy idiot droids and make them creepy, I thought was a good move. I liked it.
It makes sense too. It totally jived with the send out a signal and then that's it. They're all zombie slaves.
Okay. Let's
there was another reference to The Shining though when they're walking down the hall, right, and Graballa's two little horned dudes are standing there like the girls at the end of the hallway, the red rum like that. When I was just like, That's The Shining. I get that one. I got it. You know,
Some of
like,
it, it's it's
very
fun
rarely,
because there's a
but
lot
I'll
of
get
these
it.
things that, like, obviously this is meant for children. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
But I feel like they really took the time to put in some references that adults would get, and
Hmm.
sometimes, the jokes were a little bit more like, I don't know. I found them funny in a way my son didn't really understand. So I think it was a pretty good job of making it work for all ages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guys, what was your Ichiwawa moment, Sally? What was yours?
You got to remind me what an
Oh,
Ichiwawa
sorry.
moment.
Ichiwawa's
Good moment,
sort of
yeah.
like the coolest, the most clever moment.
Yeah, your favorite
Okay,
The
okay.
one
clever.
where you're
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, Ichiwawa.
That's kind of tough. I guess it would have to be that moment where Leia and Ben exchange that quick like backstory thing that I was talking about, where she's like, "Thanks for saving me," and he's like, "Thanks for getting me out of the trash compactor," and I was like, "I just love everything about this."
Sally, that's mine. That's
Oh
mine
no!
too.
You
The
thief.
where
Yeah.
Leia, yeah, where Leia is like in that Luke position and sort of like takes over. As I thought that was a really cool moment. I didn't see it
Mhm.
coming, even with like Luke turning bad. Like until you see Leia in the cockpit, it didn't occur to me that's where we were headed. And so
Yeah,
I was pleasantly surprised by that and thought it was very
agreed.
clever.
It's so cool that she's the protagonist too,
I
because
know,
Luke is
yeah,
not. So it's just kind of like, oh, that's the natural. Like,
right,
yeah, it would be Leia if
yeah,
Luke never, never
yeah, exactly.
left Tatooine. So
So
it's
what was
perfect.
yours? What was yours, Steve?
Mine was the Shining moment where
Okay,
because the whole movie I was just like, I don't get this. I
yeah,
don't know. I'm sure that's a reference to something. He said that. That's weird. That's got to be a reference. And that, I was like, I know that. And then when he's like, when you're thinking, here's Johnny, and he's like,
hmm
here's BN143673343, and I watched it with the subtitles again, and I was like, I laughed out loud
each
watching it
each
because the
letter.
subtitle was across the whole bottom of the screen, all the numbers, and that killed me too because I knew what he was going to say before he said it, and
Yeah.
I thought, here I am, 37, 38 years old, just laughing at a stupid little droid scene. So that was my Ichiwawa moment. I
Okay.
finally got a reference and I loved it.
All right.
So, what was your Oak of Arc moment there, Nick?
Mm. I the Emperor just mimicking the Seth MacFarlane robot chicken thing,
Yeah,
I think is really stupid because it works so well in Robot Chicken, but it's nothing like what the Emperor's like, and it doesn't even sound like him. It doesn't make sense, and
yeah, it's
so
totally Robot Chicken. He's like,
yeah,
like this, That's
exactly.
not what he sounds like. Not
So
even close.
no, I know. So I think it's annoying that they do that, and I also think because they're
Yeah,
trying to do that, the humor just doesn't work. So every time the Emperor was doing something, I was just like, no.
yeah,
What about you,
yeah. Mine.
Sally? What's your Oak of Arc?
Oh yeah.
That's a good question. I mean, I never like honestly after they collect all three and you have the three little tails, and
Hmm.
then uh, he gets into that like robot thing. I just kind of I'm like I don't really want to watch another fight scene.
Oh yeah,
Like
okay,
Yeah.
I guess I feel like one's enough. We had the one in the middle. Like, does it always have to end in a battle?
yeah.
This is more about the fun and like the quippiness of it. And but I mean, I don't know if that's fair or not because I know that a lot of people live for
Well,
the action sequence.
I
Yeah.
think that's where the merchandising comes in because they have these Lego
Mm.
mechs where you build like a big like Captain America or whatever like exoskeleton kind of thing, and my son loves those. So when that happened, when he became like this Darth Vader mech, my son leaned over to me and he was like, "Oh, we have to find that in the store. They have to have that."
Mm,
So
Oh,
I think
gotcha.
it
yeah. Got
worked
him.
for the people who know what those mechs are. As soon as he saw it, he was
Uh,
like, "Gots to have it." So yeah. So your Oak of Arc, I
gotcha.
guess, is more like the commercialism, right?
Every 7-year-old boy's
Yeah,
like Ichiwawa moment.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I think it would have been fine too if it had ended with like and all these things together mean nothing.
Mm,
Yeah.
Oh, okay, it's just a dusty old part of
right.
the, like I think it still would have been fine, like the whole lead up to like, oh, it's just a spooky, it's just a myth,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. So
I was okay with the end fight. I it made sense to me. Like you got to bring it home. I get it. Steve, did you have
yeah,
what's your Oak of Arc?
mine was just Vinay in general, right? And Vinay in Rogue One, looks like the dude is like 89 years old. He's
true.
old. So if
It's
he's
true.
alive then.
Yeah.
It would have been better if he was like, and I'm Vinay. Oh, this place is creepy. And he was just a creepy old man rather than a silly character. You know? I don't know.
I'm kind of with you
Yeah.
on that because I just don't think it particularly worked. I feel like it almost would have made more sense to me to have it be some like new fan of Vader or something, or just take an original
Yeah.
character that you can kind of explain. Because having him look and dress sort of like the Emperor, and just having this sort of
Mm-hmm.
nebulous connection, I found to be just a little confusing. So
Yeah. Well, I lost it when he was like, when Grabala was like, oh, stop sniffing the guest. And it's just like, really? Really? That's, like, we've just set him up to be like, oh, yes, master. We're getting, and he's talking with Annihilate, right?
yeah,
Which I totally missed until they said it. And I felt like an idiot, even though I saw it written on the screen, but I saw it written as NIL8. So
Right.
that's what I'm
Couldn't do
going
it.
for. That's
Couldn't
my
put it together.
excuse. But no, when he's like, "Ooh, this could be the prophecy," and then he walks downstairs, and he's sniffing Poe, and I thought he just lost all of his like mysteriousness,
like his air
and
of menace. Yeah,
his air of menace. He could have been a continuing spooky thing throughout it. Instead of being, creepy, he could have shot in and been like, "It's broken,"
yeah.
like frightened people, or could have been an object to startle people, but they missed out on it because they made him this weird sniffing.
Well, yeah, I mean, you
creepy
kind of
old
wonder
man,
why, like that seems perfect to have him be sort of an Igor type character.
Yes.
Just like sort of like lurking around and just sort of like spooky But yeah, they sort of went
Yeah.
for the joke with it, which didn't
Yeah.
always work.
Like, oh, let's go this way, and he's already standing there, so that would
Yeah.
have been
Yeah,
that would've
I
been
agree.
perfect,
I agree.
so.
I
Well-
did like the line when they say that, well, who is that guy? And they're like, oh, he just came with the place, like kind
Yeah.
of a spooky caretaker.
Yeah, I
that was
like
a good line.
It
Yeah,
was.
that was a
But it
good
could have been
line.
Better
Yeah.
applied to a different character,
Or
or like
just-
a different
Yeah,
version of that character.
A different interpretation. Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we got to rate it. So how many yub nubs? But it's in two parts. How do you rate it just as like a cartoon Star Wars extravaganza? And how do you rate it as a Halloween special? Sally?
Honestly, I really enjoyed it. I'd give it like 5 Yub Nubs as a cartoon and maybe 4 Yub Nubs as a Halloween special.
Okay.
I gave it a 3 as a movie. I'm going to be critical just
Okay.
because I felt like it didn't. It was discombobulated, and then they tried to tie it in together at the very end with a couple lines like, "Oh wait, that's the story he told. Oh, that makes sense with that." And it was just like, "Oh, that's how they're tying it full circle, just with like 2 lines." And then, like Sally said, here we go, another fight. So it was kind of like, wrap up the story. Now let's entertain people. And it's just like, they could have, that was they missed it. That was the opportunity to make it into a spooky movie. And that's why I'll give it a 2 for Halloween, because it did not feel like a Halloween special. It just felt like a spooky Lego movie, like a haunted Lego movie. Could have just been anything,
I would probably be closer
So-
to you ratings wise if I watched it just by myself. But watching it with my son, like I could see how much it worked for him, and so that kind of made it more fun for me. So I think as just like a Lego Star Wars special, like I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it. I wasn't bored. I thought it was fine. I think anytime you have a story where you're like, we're going to tell 3 smaller stories with a frame story, I feel like you're really kind of saying you don't have a story that will last for the full length. So you take these 3 ideas and like tie it up with a bow. It did feel like there was a little bit of that. But I'm still going to give it 4 Yub Nubs just for a Star Wars special. I think I'm going to go 3 Halloween-wise because I think after The Lost Boy, it kind of stopped being scary outside of a few like jumps here and there. It didn't have really a spooky element. And I think showing Poe in the skeleton outfit and having BB-8 as a pumpkin for just a handful of seconds, to me sort of demonstrated like, well, you could have been doing that the whole way. You could have had a lot more Halloween imagery without just being like, look, it's a jack-o'-lantern. Like, you could have made it work.
Yeah.
And they didn't really. So,
Well, and we've all seen the Star Wars holiday special, so we
Sure.
know
Yeah.
that they can go all out.
They
like,
can. They can.
Yes, all out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's one thing I think it's interesting that I just realized now is we've barely talked about Dean.
Good point. That's a good point.
You know, I think that's for me why I was just like, this is really weak because like the whole premise of the movie was really revolving around Dean,
Yeah.
and he really just didn't. He didn't matter. You know, it was kind of like I want to do all this to. Yeah, he mattered to tie in the story, but he wasn't a pivotal character.
Yeah.
That made me really care.
Yeah.
You know, it was kind of like reusing the whole like we already know about a kid who, you know, is misunderstood and has to work for what he's doing and actually has power and this and that's Luke. You
Right.
know, and then you know, like we've already done that. So I don't know. I just felt like his character in general was just whoops.
Until you said
mistake.
that, I legitimately forgot about him, and I think that. When you have a setting like a creepy Sith hotel and a little kid who has to work there, I mean, there's your story. Just have it be like Dean's experience. And maybe like in the end, he's rescued by Poe or something like that. I don't think you needed to have Poe there every step of the way. Just like make Dean the protagonist and have him have like a spooky adventure like in this weird hotel, and then end up with him like, you know, going with Poe and Rey and Finn, like whatever. You know, that's a good point.
There was that moment where he's like, "So, Dean, tell me about yourself," and he does in like 3 sentences. He's like, "Cool. Anyway, hey, we look a lightsaber." You know, it's just like, okay.
Oh,
like,
I see another vignette coming. Hold on, Dean.
I do that when I write it, and I'm like, and then they did this, and he was working for his family, and I was like, wait a minute, am I just making that up? I had to like find it, and I was like, oh, there it is. Like it was just dropped in there, you know. So, yeah.
All right. Well, I still think I had fun. I had fun with it, and I think you know that's that. Sally, this is like the first of your tour of Halloween episodes this season because you and I are going to be talking about Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House over on How's Things. I've seen the movie and I saw the Netflix series, which is only very loosely connected. I've never read the book before, so I'm in there now. What about you? Have you read it, Sally?
Same, although it is vital that I know which of the Haunting original movies you saw.
Okay.
Because if you say the 90s,
No. I saw one that's
I'm
like
not even
from
showing
the,
up. Yeah.
the 60s or so. I haven't seen the Catherine Zeta-Jones one.
Yeah. The Catherine Zeta-Jones one, I rarely say this, but is garbage.
Wow.
But
yikes.
But no, I'm a few chapters into the book, which I am really enjoying so far. It's interesting to see where the show and the movie sort of diverge and how they're connected to the book. So I'm excited to talk about it.
I'm
and
excited.
I will also be on, for the first time ever, previously on X-Men, where we will be talking about issue 159, Night Scream.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
Spooky.
I haven't read it yet. It's now on my reading list. I'm super excited about it. Apparently it has to do with a love story between Storm, or a spooky story about Storm and Dracula. So
yeah.
Tune into that too, where we will discover all about that together.
All right.
I'm stoked that this is my life now. So.
Yeah.
You're the queen of Halloween.
You're in demand. You're just checking off podcasts left and right. So you're all over the place. Well, our next episode here on this Endorian Life is going to be episode 7, The Curse of the Jindas. And I've already spoken with our friend Kendra Mickles, who appeared on the last Jindas episode, and we might be able to coax her back.
If the first one didn't scare her.
That's right. That's right. Steve, happy Halloween and happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
And Sally, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time, everybody.
Yes, thank you, Sally. Appreciate it.
Thank you both.
This Endorian Life was brought to you by the Radio Meanwhile Network. You can find more about this show and others like it at our network's website, radiomeanwhile.com. Share your thoughts on this and upcoming episodes by following us on Facebook or Twitter at Endorian Life. And please rate, subscribe, and share this show wherever you get your podcasts. Woo!